This is the Fearless Agent Podcast, where you learn how to make way more money fast selling real estate with your host, the Fearless Agent himself, Bobloeffler.
Good day to you. This is Bob here at the Fearless Agent Podcast for real estate sales professionals just like you, where we explain that everything that you've been taught by the real estate industry is not only wrong, but you will make lots more money in way less time by doing the exact opposite. I had a conversation today with an agent with a very large company that you're all familiar with, and she was talking about how horrible the training was that was provided by her company. Lots and lots of training. Always have her in a class. I said, whatever you do, quit going to that training so I don't have to retrain you and then train you. I just want to train you, make my life easier. So today I'm just going to talk about some random thoughts that had occurred to me. One of them is this. The whole real estate industry is so buyer-focused that the sellers are going disturbingly unrewarded. So if you look at any website, any agent's website generally, if I go to a real estate agent's website, usually when I do a complimentary coaching call, an agent will call me and I'll say, if the money was the same, and just from a personal preference, I don't want you to, there's no right answer. And you can ask yourself this question. If the money was the same and you had to do listings only or buyers only, which would you prefer? And they almost always say, I want to do listings. Listings are the name of the game, list to last. You've all heard that. And there is certainly some truth in that. If a person wants to focus on buyers because they hate doing listings, and I'm talking about if you're that person, what if you had the world's best listing presentation? In every listing, when you went to a stranger's house, they said, yes, I want to list with you. I want to pay you 7% and you can keep 4%. And I want to underprice my house on day one. Now, that's the experience every fearless agent has. But let's say that was your experience. Would you then prefer to do listings, or would you still prefer to do buyers? If you'd still prefer to do buyers, I get that. It's a matter of taste. In Latin, they say de gustibus non est disputandum, which means in a matter of taste, there is no argument. See, that's what happens when you're a Latin scholar. I'm killing on Jeopardy. That's all I can say. So here's the deal. If you want to do buyers only because you'll make more money. If you want to do sellers only because you'll make more money. But most people that call me for whatever reason, they say, oh, no, I want to do buyers. I want to do sellers. I want to focus on sellers. And then I go to their website, and what's the first thing I see? It says search for homes. Well, sellers don't search for homes. Buyers search for homes. So if your goal is to do business with sellers, don't have search for homes on your website. Don't have that IDX plugin. It's off topic. So the seller would think, this person, this guy, this lady, she cares about the buyer getting a good deal on my house. She's buyer focused. And again, the whole industry is buyer focused. So when you focus on sellers, you're going to talk like a seller. So the reason that fearless agents, I, as a fearless agent, I have an amazing strategy, and no other agent has it, and they don't. And it would 1,000% guarantee you that the buyer would grossly overpay for your house. They'd be happy they did, and you would end up with tens of thousands of extra dollars, and I'm talking more than your house is worth. This is money you don't deserve. It's more than your house is worth. More than any other agent could get you, and I'm talking net after all the expenses are paid. So would you want to hear how I do that, or are you allergic to money, is the magic question that every fearless agent asks. Well, everybody, of course, says yes. I'm not allergic to money. I do want to hear how that works. Say, okay, so it would be fair to say then that what you don't want to do is what all the other agents do, and you already know what they do. They care about the buyer, because the whole real estate industry is all about the buyer. And they say things like, well, in a market like this, you got to be realistic on your price. They want the buyer to get a good deal on your house. They care about fairness to the buyer, not paying too much. Well, that's the kind of baloney that causes sellers to lose tens of thousands of dollars and sell their houses way too cheap. By the way, the same way all your neighbors did when they sold their houses, I happen to know. They sold them way too cheap. So would it be fair to say that's what you would want to avoid, Mr. Seller Prospect? And they say, yeah, that's what I don't want. So if I'm able to sell your house for more than it's worth and you end up with tens of thousands of extra dollars net, you're not going to be offended when I do that. Is that fair to say? Yes, I'm not. That is what I want. So that is what you want me to do? Yes, Bob, that's what I want you to do. So this is what every Fearless agent knows how to do in sales. You sell them on the product. What's the product? It's not your brand. It's not anything other than the tens of thousands of extra dollars, because that's what every seller wants. If you're selling what people do want, you're not going to have a problem getting business. So what do they want? Do they want to list their house for 7%? Do they want to have a 1-year long listing? Do they want to underprice it on day one? Of course they don't want that. What they want is the tens of thousands of extra dollars, so sell them what they want. That's the product. So first you sell them on the product, then you crush your competitors, and then you resell them on the product. And only then would you ever go to the question, when would you like to open up your hand, have me plunk the tens of thousands of extra dollars into it, and that would coincide with moving day, probably. When's the soonest we could do that? And then you go to when, okay? So sales is about an elaborate setup that leads to one magic question that has no wrong answer, and you already know the answer. So when the whole industry is focused on the buyer, see, there's this consumerism movement in America. But the problem with the real estate industry is that while everybody says they want to focus on sellers, only about 5% of the agents do. The rest of them are all about the buyer. And they think like a buyer. And they say buyer-focused things. So if you're talking to a seller, you need to talk like a seller, making the buyer overpay. Now, is anybody offended by an agent who says, I got my buyer a really good deal. They bought the house under market? Has anybody ever heard that? Of course, you've all heard that. Has anybody ever offended by that? No, nobody's ever offended by that. But when the seller sells their house for less than it's worth and they end up losing tens of thousands of dollars, nobody shook up one bit about that. But when the buyer grossly overpays and the seller ends up with tens of thousands of dollars that they did not do, all of a sudden people find that offensive. That's funny, because they don't look at the seller as a consumer of real estate services, which they are. So the MLS in every town advertises the days on the market that a house has been on the market. Well, that's outrageous. Why would the buyer get to know that? So the whole market, again, the whole industry is so buyer-focused that sellers are going disturbingly unrewarded. So when you are the only agent that talks like a seller to sellers, when you're the only agent that cares about the seller like the seller wants you to care about them, then you're not going to have a problem getting tons of listing appointments and getting tons of listings and charging full commission and getting paid what you're worth in real estate. So that's what I want you to do. The other things that just occur to me is this. When I was new, I failed miserably for 5 years in real estate because I did all the training that it was offered to me by the real estate industry. And, I wouldn't say it worked for anybody, but there were people around me that were succeeding. And I was not succeeding. So I spent 5 years of torture earning a poverty level income, basically, getting myself into a financial jam with the IRS. It was just a disaster. And then I went to a seminar that was taught by Floyd Wickman, who is my mentor. So, and you could Google Floyd and see Floyd. Now, back in those days, there were all these other sales trainers, who many of whom I'm friends with today. But what they were teaching was not sales. Floyd, he taught sales. So I'm sitting in this seminar, and there's this lady sitting next to me. She has 6 months in the business. She's got no listings, no sales, no hope of succeeding, really. I've got 5 years of massive failure behind me. And I turned to her and I said, where in the world have they been hiding this? This is real. This, if we do this, this will work. And she goes, yeah, that's right. So we sign up when we take this sales training program. And for the first time, somebody actually taught us how to sell. So sales is that you have this elaborate setup. It leads to one magic question. That question has no wrong answer, and you already know the answer. And so when you learn that and you can apply it to every part of your real estate career and your life, really, then everything just gets totally easy. And then it's about putting in the hours. So let's say you had a presentation to give face-to-face for every situation you find yourself in. Listing presentation, pricing, for sale by owner, buyer, and investor. So that's the core curriculum of Fearless Agent. We teach you 5 presentations because I don't want you ever sitting in front of anybody who has a question about real estate and you don't have the exact right answer. And if you focus on helping them and not worry about you getting the listing or you getting paid or anything like that, then you're never going to have a bad experience. Then you're going to be eager to get on the phone, go door knocking, hold open houses, do all the things that you can do to generate business. When an incoming call comes in off a sign, you're going to know the exact right words to say. When an internet lead comes in, you're going to know the exact right words to say. When you're making outgoing calls to FSBOs, expireds, your sphere, asking for referrals, you're going to have the exact right words to say. When you're cold calling up and down the streets, door knocking, you're going to have the exact right words to say. Then you don't ever have the fear that keeps people from showing up and putting in the hours. So I want you to show up and put in the hours and know that you're always going to have the right answer and you're going to get paid for it. So I end up joining forces with that lady. We end up being the top producing team for Century 21 in the state of Arizona. And the reality is you have to have the right mindset for real estate. You have to know what's possible, okay? So the right mindset is really this. I don't care what the customer says. I don't care what the customer thinks. I don't care what the customer does. That's their business, okay? I care about the customer, but I don't care what they say, I don't care what they think, and I don't care what they do. What I do care about is what I say. You live and die by the words you say in real estate. I care what I think. My mindset is crucial. I care what I do. My activities are going to change everything. You cannot think your way into right acting. You must act your way into right thinking. So what I do every day, and if every day looks identical, then I'm going to realize what's possible. And what's possible, I mean, most agents are surrounded by so much failure, they have no idea what's possible. So I started coaching a guy a year ago. He was just one of those guys that said, I'm going to have him as a guest, by the way, on this podcast, because he asked if he could. But, you know, he was just one of those guys, a nice guy. I think he was 23, 22, something like that. And he said, I'm going to do whatever you tell me to do. He's not going to be a customizer. He's not going to be a little changer of everything. You know, he's not tweaking everything. He's just going to do what I tell him to do. So he does that. So our goal was for him to do 40 listings over the next 12 months last year. He ended up doing 120. So because originally he didn't think 40 was possible. But now he knows that 120 is possible, so he thinks 200 is possible. And he's right. Now he's going to have help, right? He's going to have an assistant. But he's only going to need an assistant. He's not going to need a team. He's not going to need any of that baloney. But he now knows what is possible. So I always say, if at first you do succeed, it's your father's business. You ever heard that story? So a lot of people in real estate, they have a two-step process for making $1 million. So here's the two-step process to make $1 million in real estate. Step number one is start with $900,000. Yeah, that's how most people do it. Most people earn a small fortune in real estate by starting with a large one. So you've got people, I noticed there were people in my office that I have to be careful who I copy, okay? And being careful who you copy can make a big difference. And I'm going to tell you who not to copy, all right? And by the way, if any of what we talk about on this podcast makes sense to you, I hope you would call me. You know, if you're earning less selling real estate than you wish you were, and you're open to the idea of having some help, and you want to learn more, you can always call me anytime, okay? So you can call me at 480-385-8810. That's my cell phone number. And we can just see if what you're trying to do and, you know, what we do at Fearless Agent, if it would even be a good fit. I'll tell you if it's a good fit. If you're the kind of person that can do what I tell you to do, not be a customizer or a tweaker, and get all the crap out of your head that you've been taught by every other coach in the entire real estate industry, then it would be a good fit. And you, again, call me at 480-385-8810. Don't think you're bothering me. Please don't email me or text me. Sales happens on the phone, so I practice what I preach. Just give me a call. If any of you would like to do Fearless Agent coaching, you went on the website, you priced it out, and you can't afford it, but you wish you could, please visit fearlessagent.com, watch the webinar, 45 minutes long, take a lot of notes, go to the video training page, watch all those videos. I guarantee you this. Those free videos will be better coaching for free than you would pay any other coach in America. And if you ever have a question, again, you can always call me because we want to help you for free so we can get you to afford us. So when you're copying people, you see people in your office and you go, how do they do it? Well, most of them did it with daddy's money. You know, there were people in my office that they looked successful. They were driving a fancy car. They lived in an expensive house. And then I realized they had all that stuff the day they got into real estate. And most of them didn't earn enough money selling real estate to afford the payments on those cars or those houses. They were just real estate dabblers, and then they're pontificating like they know what they're talking about, and everything they said for me to do didn't work because they were wrong. And it didn't work for them either, but again, they didn't need to work, so it doesn't matter. So I think one of the secrets to success in real estate is you must have a commitment to being the very best at what you do and a passion for learning more about it every single day. So if you're committed to being the best you can be at what you do and a passion for learning more about it every single day, then you're going to succeed. You know, well, certainly with our coaching, you would succeed. So think bigger, number one. Get trained, right? If you think the real estate industry is going to train you to have the results that Fearless Agent coaching students get, you're wrong. It's never going to happen. Be different than every other agent. If you look at what all the other agents are doing and absolutely do the exact opposite, and you'd make more money whether I coached you or not. And then I think it's a good idea to embrace technology, but don't get bogged down in it. So the technology I want you to embrace is the telephone. You're going to make more money in less hours on the telephone than you will with any other technology. So if you are screwing around, GPS, I think that's a good technology. I don't know how we ended up showing up to the right house without it, but people just get bogged down in apps. So there's no app that you will ever need to get rich in real estate. None of my coaching students are using an app. The people that are making $1 million a year, they're not fiddling around with an app. They're not screwing around on Facebook all day either. They're not screwing around watching YouTube videos all day either. They are on the telephone talking to buyers, sellers, and investors about real estate, and they don't have time because they're booking 5 listing appointments a week minimum. So the guy that's doing 120 transactions a year, by the way, he doesn't work weekends. He's out on his boat on the weekends, screwing around like he should be. So that's the secret. So I think it was Stephen Covey, the 7 Habits of Highly Defective People guy, who said the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. So think about your business. What is the main thing? Well, the main thing is booking listing appointments. See, if your goal is to do 40 transactions, you're not going to hit your goal. If your goal is to do 27 million next 12 months, you're not going to hit your goal. If your goal is to do, net a certain amount or gross a certain amount, you're not going to hit your goal. If your goal is to book 5 listing appointments this week, then 2 will cancel, you'll go on 3, and you'll get 1. If that's your goal, if 5 is your goal, you're going to hit those other goals, but you're never going to hit those other goals. None of that stuff's going to happen unless you can do the 5, okay? And this is assuming you're focusing on listings. So the main thing that you want to keep, the main thing, is scheduling 5 listing appointments a week. And how's that going to happen? The easiest, it's going to happen on the telephone. It's not going to be door knocking, probably. It's not going to be Facebooking. It's not going to be buying leads and squandering your money on all kinds of, tech junk. So when you are booking 5 listing appointments a week, then what is the main thing? Well, then the main thing is to have a listing presentation that guarantees you that you can walk up to a stranger's house. They're going to end up paying you 7%. You're going to keep 4%. And I'm talking in a market where everybody else charges 5 or 4 total. And you're going to be able to get a 1-year listing when everybody else gets them for 90 days. And you're going to have that seller begging you to underprice their house on day 1. And when that all happens, then the main thing is another thing. So you're going to always be doing the prospecting, always be learning the presentations. Then what's the main thing? Then it's to now you've got the skills. You've got the schedule is going to be your challenge. So the schedule becomes the main thing that's holding you back. What is that main thing that's holding you back? Well, then it's the schedule. So when you're doing 5 listing appointments scheduled a week, you're going on 3, you're getting 1 listing. There's a lot of, work, flailing, schlepping. There's all that kind of stuff. Then you've got to be a rock star at time management. You want every day to look identical. You want at noon, lunch happens every day. You're in a restaurant, you're in your house, the phone is off, so you're not taking incoming calls. And you're eating and having a nice conversation with somebody at lunch, their phone is off, and you're looking around the restaurant at all the losers who are typing at each other. Then you get back on the phone. Then at 5, you eat dinner. You have a 2:30 listing appointment and a 7 p.m. listing appointment. And you can go to those and not be hungry and cranky and tired because you had a noon lunch and a 5 dinner. So if you set up your day that way and every day looks identical, then you're going to have to delegate. If you're taking 2 listings a day or a listing a day or a listing a week, you're going to have to delegate a whole lot of stuff to a helper, an assistant, and then every day can look the same. And you're only doing the high dollars per hour activity. So what's the number one highest dollar per activity that any realtor can do? Well, it's keeping the main thing the main thing. What's the main thing? Telephone prospecting. Nothing will ever be higher dollar per hour earning than that. That's the thing you don't delegate. You never delegate that. You could delegate the listing presentation. I have coaching students that just spend all day on the phone, and they have a partner go on the listing presentation for them, which is the second highest dollar producing activity, and then an assistant or multiple assistants handle every other thing. So that's keeping the main thing the main thing. So I've got videos at fearlessagent.com on different topics. A couple of them are on time management. I would encourage you to go to fearlessagent.com, watch those videos, and make sure that you understand when you're on the phone booking the appointment. There's appointment scheduling, there's time management, all of that works together, because I want you to be able to go on 2 listing appointments a day. And, I had a guy that he's a new Fearless Agent coaching student. And on last week's group coaching call, he said, I have not scheduled 4 listing appointments with strangers in the last year, probably. And he said, for the first time ever, I'm going to call for sale by owners using the Fearless Agent dialogue. And he booked 4 for sale by owner listing appointments. Now, these are not visits. These are not, hey, can I come over and take a look at your house? They knew why he was coming over, to list the house. So he said, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. So in 45 minutes, he schedules 4 listing appointments. And I have so many coaching students that say, I never, ever thought that I could schedule 5 listing appointments in a week, and they end up doing it in one day. But now you have to go on them, so, but if you schedule 5 listing appointments a week in any price range, in any town, you're going to be doing great. So please always have that as your minimum standard. I'm going to schedule 5 listing appointments a week no matter what. So how do you do that? What's the secret to scheduling 5 listing appointments a week? How many calls does it take? Well, the answer is all of them. How many hours does it take to schedule 5 listing appointments? And the answer, of course, is all of them. You'll know when you've done it. So after you've scheduled 5, you can call me and tell me how many calls it took. You can call me and tell me how many hours at work it took. So let's say that you called from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. every single weekday. You took a lunch break at noon. You took a dinner break at 5. And at the end of all that week, you had no appointments, but you scheduled 5 listing appointments. Would that be a success? Well, and everybody would say, yes, of course, that was a big success. What if you called those same number of hours, same days, and you scheduled only 4 or 3? Would that be a success? Well, it's probably 3 more than you're scheduling now, and yeah, it would be a success because at least you can say, hey, I did the best I could do, okay? I don't want you to have to work weekends. I never worked weekends. I took Saturday and Sunday off. But if you do the best you can do, that's the best you can do. Zig Ziglar said that if you're always getting better, then you're always at your best. And he also said anything worth doing is worth doing poorly until you can do it well. So when you're telephone prospecting, in the very beginning, if you're a coaching student of mine, you're going to have the exact right words to say. But you're not going to be as good as me. Or you're not going to be, maybe. You're not going to be as good as, in fact, you could never be better than me. You could be as good as me, but I always get my question answered. And after years and years of telephone prospecting, I hear things that maybe you wouldn't hear. I hear the yes when they said something that sounded like a no. I hear the no when they said something that sounded a little bit like a yes, and I'm not fooled by that anymore. So maybe in the beginning, you're going to suck at it more than I would or more than somebody else would. Maybe you have a foreign accent that you're hard to understand. I got people I coach that they have a thick foreign accent, and yet they're scheduling 5 listing appointments a week. Maybe because the people were confused. They don't know why they're coming over. But people have advantages and disadvantages. I'm not famous for my incredible good looks. I have a face for radio. That's why we're doing a podcast and not a webinar, because I don't look that good. But when I show up, I got the goods. I got the skills. So if you have the right skills, the right schedule, and the right systems in place, and you have no fear because you have the right 5 presentations, you have the right words to say on the phone to book the opportunities to get face-to-face to people, then you're going to earn your full worth in real estate, and you are going to be a fearless agent. So once again, we want to thank you for joining us today. Please do visit us at fearlessagent.com. You can always call me directly at 480-385-8810. Please do give us a review of this podcast on iTunes. 5-star, please. I'm begging you. This is a shameless beg. Visit, and by the way, if begging doesn't work, I wouldn't be married, so I know that works. So you can visit us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. See me wherever I'm at the shopping. I'm at Fry's shopping store. You can, always, until next week, all I want you to do is have fun. Always be humble. And most of all, be fearless. Thanks, gang.